Over $500 billion. That's how much drivers spend every single year on aftermarket car parts. And most people assume that money is going toward better performance, longer lifespan, or at least some kind of upgrade. But the uncomfortable truth is this. Roughly 80% of aftermarket parts sold today are absolute junk. Not slightly worse than OEM. Not good enough for the price. Just flat-out dangerous. Some of these parts are responsible for tens of thousands of accidents every year. Others quietly destroy engines from the inside. And one product that's still floating around online has already been linked to multiple deaths. The scary part? Most people don't realize they've made a mistake until it's far too late. And once you hear what's coming at the end of this video, you'll never shop for car parts the same way again. Let's start with a mistake that puts drivers in danger faster than almost anything else on the road. Cheap tires are one of the most overlooked hazards in modern driving. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, nearly 78,000 crashes every year are linked to flat tires and blowouts. That number alone should be enough to make anyone think twice before clicking "Buy Now" on a discount tire listing. The problem isn't just that cheap tires wear out faster, it's how they're made. Many low-cost tires, especially imported ones from unknown manufacturers, are barely tested for wet grip. In the real world, rain doesn't happen on empty test tracks. It happens on crowded highways where drivers can't slow down as much as they should. That's when poor rubber compounds, weak sidewalls, and inferior tread designs show their true colors. To cut costs, many of these manufacturers compromise on rubber quality, fuel-saving additives, and internal belt strength. That's why high-quality tires can last 50,000 to 70,000 miles, while bargain options can be worn down in as little as 20,000. Some don't even make it that far. Add winter conditions to the mix, and suddenly that great deal becomes an accident waiting to happen. Saving a few $100s on tires might feel smart at checkout, but it's one of the fastest ways to gamble with your life. And if you think tires are bad, the next part decides whether your car stops at all. Brake pads and rotors are another area where the aftermarket cuts corners in ways most drivers never see. Here's something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. There are no federally mandated tests for replacement brake pads. That means almost anyone can slap together a low-budget formula, print a convincing box, and sell it as a direct replacement. Brake failure accounts for over 20% of crashes caused by mechanical issues, and cheap pads play a bigger role in that than people realize. Independent testing has shown that after just a handful of aggressive stops, low-quality pads can require double the pedal pressure to slow the vehicle. That's because inferior materials lose friction when they heat up. Combine that with low-grade rotors that can't dissipate heat properly, and you're suddenly pushing harder on the pedal while the car refuses to stop the way it should. In extreme cases, overheated calipers can cause brake fluid to boil. When that happens, the pedal can drop straight to the floor. Fixing the damage afterward can cost thousands. So that $30 brake pad deal from a sketchy website can quickly turn into a $2,500 repair bill. And brakes aren't the only components that lie in your car. Mass airflow sensors are designed to last hundreds of thousands of miles. They're delicate, but incredibly durable when built correctly. That's why OEM sensors can survive a decade or more without issue. Aftermarket versions, especially generic ones, are a completely different story. Modern engines rely on extremely precise airflow data. When a sensor sends inaccurate readings, the engine doesn't just run poorly, it protects itself. That's why so many drivers experience limp mode immediately after installing a cheap MEF sensor. Even when the car doesn't shut itself down, symptoms like rough idle, hesitation, stalling, and reduced fuel economy appear almost instantly. And even if an aftermarket sensor seems to work at first, many fail within a year. Something that should last 10 years simply taps out early. Cleaning an OEM sensor is often all that's needed, but replacing it with a knockoff usually creates more problems than it solves. And one of the biggest killers of these sensors is hiding in plain sight. Air filters are treated like disposable accessories by most drivers. Over half of people only change them when a mechanic brings it up. And when they do, they often reach for the cheapest option available. The danger isn't just poor airflow. Cheap filters use low-quality fibers that shed over time. Those fibers can coat the hot wire inside the MAF sensor, overheating it and causing failure. Replacing that sensor can cost over $500 once labor is included. Even worse, poorly made filters allow dirt and debris to pass straight into the engine. Tiny particles slowly grind away at cylinder walls, piston rings, and turbo bearings. That $10 savings can snowball into a $6,000 engine rebuild. Reusable filters aren't immune either. Over-oiling them can contaminate sensors just as easily. Sticking with OEM-grade filtration from trusted retailers is boring, but it's one of the smartest decisions a driver can make. And the same logic applies to what protects your engine's lifeblood. Oil filters play a critical role during the most damaging moment of engine operation, startup. Nearly 80% of engine wear happens in those first seconds when oil hasn't fully circulated yet. Cheap filters often use basic cellulose media that lets metal particles as large as 40 microns slip through. That's more than enough to score bearings and block oil passages. Quality filters trap particles down to 10 or 20 microns, drastically reducing long-term damage. Then there's the bypass valve. Every filter has one, designed to prevent oil starvation if the filter clogs. Low-budget filters use plastic components that fail prematurely. The anti-drainback valve is just as important. When it doesn't seal properly, oil drains out of the system overnight, leaving the engine dry on startup. Trying to save $4 on an oil filter can quietly shave years off an engine's life. And if you think internal damage is bad, wait until you hear about parts that fail while you're driving. Tie rod ends and ball joints are safety-critical components that operate under extreme loads. Even a tolerance difference of a fraction of a millimeter can cause instability at highway speeds. Low-end aftermarket versions often skip proper heat treatment, which means they wear out 2 to 4 times faster than OEM parts. Some fail in under a year. Steering wander, vibration, and uneven tire wear are early warnings. Ignore them long enough, and a sudden loss of control becomes a real possibility. Universal fit suspension parts are especially dangerous. If a component isn't designed specifically for your vehicle's make and model, it doesn't belong on your car. Steering and suspension failures don't announce themselves with warning lights. They happen when you need control the most. And once again, the illusion of savings disappears the moment labor costs and repeat repairs enter the picture. But steering isn't the only system quietly draining your wallet. Oxygen sensors have a massive impact on fuel economy. A faulty sensor can reduce efficiency by up to 25%. That means a cheap aftermarket sensor that saves $50 up front can cost hundreds every year at the pump. Most aftermarket O2 sensors are universal fit, requiring splicing or adapters. That alone introduces compatibility issues with the ECU. Even slight inaccuracies in data can cause the engine to run rich or lean, damaging the catalytic converter in the process. That's an easy $2,000 repair. Fuel pumps are another common trap. The appeal is obvious. Why pay over $1,000 for a repair when a cheap pump costs under $100? The answer becomes clear a few months later. Low-quality pumps use inferior motors, seals, and check valves. Fuel pressure becomes inconsistent. Hard starts, hesitation, and sudden stalling follow. In many vehicles, replacing a pump requires dropping the fuel tank, which adds hundreds of dollars in labor. That cheap part quickly becomes an expensive lesson, and visibility-related parts are no safer. Wiper blades might seem harmless, but poor visibility causes tens of thousands of crashes every year. Natural rubber blades dry out quickly. Synthetic versions last longer, but silicone blades outperform both. They resist extreme temperatures and even leave a water-repellent coating on the windshield. Cheap or counterfeit blades streak, chatter, and fail when conditions are at their worst. Headlights are even more complex. Modern testing shows that nearly half of OEM headlights already struggle with adequate illumination. Cheap aftermarket assemblies are far worse. Low-grade plastics haze and yellow under UV exposure. Weak seals allow moisture inside, corroding electronics and dimming beams. Multiple automakers have faced lawsuits over defective headlights, but OEM warranties cover replacements. Knockoffs don't. Saving money on lighting components increases the risk of nighttime collisions. Plain and simple. But the next category affects every single start your car makes. Car batteries aren't what they used to be. Long shipping times accelerate deterioration, especially when batteries sit unused. Many well-known brands now manufacture overseas, increasing the delay before installation. Checking the date code is critical. Buying a battery that's already months old shortens its lifespan dramatically. Physical stores with high turnover are safer than online marketplaces filled with questionable listings. Spark plugs are another area flooded with counterfeits. Poorly gapped or low-quality plugs cause immediate misfires. Some lack proper resistors, interfering with vehicle electronics. Others are missing protective coatings, causing them to seize or break inside the engine. Performance plugs don't add power in stock engines. They just add cost. OEM or OEM supplier plugs are the only sensible option. And as bad as counterfeit ignition parts are, nothing compares to what comes next. Airbags and supplemental restraint system components are the most dangerous counterfeit products on the market. Federal safety agencies have issued warnings about fake airbags containing unapproved explosive charges. Some explode incorrectly during crashes, sending metal fragments toward occupants instead of protecting them. Investigations have already linked these parts to multiple deaths and serious injuries. Certain manufacturers have been banned outright, but listings still appear online. An airbag system replacement can cost over $1,500 installed. That's why $100 listings look tempting. They're also a massive red flag. Junkyard airbags are just as risky unless properly certified. When it comes to safety systems, there is no such thing as a bargain. Cutting corners here puts lives at risk, including your own and your family's. So that brings us to the end of the aftermarket parts you should never buy cheap or counterfeit. The pattern is always the same. The savings disappear, the risks multiply, and the damage shows up when it's least convenient or most dangerous. If you find yourself replacing parts more often than expected, it's worth asking whether the issue is your driving habits or the quality of what you're installing. Because sometimes the real mistake isn't the car, it's what you put into it.